Okay, so I wanted to start off this year talking more about writing and art and stuff, and then the world went on fire, and so I've done none of it. So I decided I just have to carve out time, or it's never going to happen. So yeah, we're going to talk about some writing today. So my most recent story that I've been working on has one of the leads is a female, kind of overpowered character, and if you've paid attention the last like 5 or 10 years, overpowered female characters, especially if they're a lead, aren't necessarily received well. And shout out to writers who are perfectionists and have anxiety, like me. I started to wonder if like they maybe had some points or if it was all just misogyny. So I started to watch some videos that ranged from interesting to infuriating. So you don't have to. And I just want to say up front, it's not like I'm Brandon Sanderson or anything. These are just my opinions. And I want to make clear that critiquing stories and writing stories, in my opinion, are two very different skills. So take that as you will. But if you're writing a female action hero or a female overpowered character and you're curious and you also are kind of worried about if you can do it well or have it well received, stay tuned. I'll give you my opinion. Okay, so if you go on YouTube and you look up videos on how to write female characters, for some reason, the character or movie that always gets cited as a bad example of writing women is Captain Marvel. For the record, I liked Captain Marvel. I wouldn't necessarily say it was my favorite superhero movie or my favorite movie at all. I mean, my favorite movie is Lord of the Rings. It's a high bar to beat. But I do think the amount of hate I get is just a little unfair. So going through the videos, there seem to be two camps of complaints about Captain Marvel. And the first one seemed to be mostly just misogyny stuff. The second one I think was a little more valid, where they didn't like her character arc. So they didn't like the movie because of that. In the first camp, like the things they were pretty much what you'd expect, where they didn't think she smiled enough, where they didn't think she had enough emotion, her character was too stoic. And these I am not going to pay attention to at all when I'm writing my character, because in my opinion, I don't think they're fair. Like if we're looking at superhero or action movies, we've had overpowered action heroes since, I don't know, at least the 1980s, but they were male-led, and they had a lot of these same physical traits, where they're very stoic, they don't necessarily have a huge emotional arc in the movie. And I don't know if it's just like the genre or where the movie's being shown, because now we have, if you pay attention to anime, we have Mao Mao in Apothecary Diaries and Frieren Beyond the End are both very stoic, unemotional characters, but it's been received very well. And I don't know if that's because its primary viewing base is in different countries or if it's marketed to different people, whereas like superhero movies in the US tend to be marketed to everyone, so everyone can complain about them. And I wonder if some of this is the genre too, because Captain Marvel and other overpowered heroes that are in superhero genre that tends to be marketed traditionally to men, at least in the US and Western countries. Whereas Apothecary Diaries is a mystery show. And Frieren, while it's fantasy and it does have some action, it starts off really slower paced. It's a slice of life kind of feeling in the beginning, in my opinion. And I think those viewers, for those audience, for that genre, tends to be more willing to accept female leads because the slice of life and mystery aren't marketed exclusively to men or weren't marketed exclusively to men in the past like superhero or action movies were. And for some reason, anytime you're breaking into a new space, not because a character doesn't deserve to be there because of their race or gender or whatever, but because traditionally they're not seen there, people tend to hate them. But it makes it easier for better or more of that type of character in those genres. But when you're the first one, you're going to have egg on your face. So going into more detail on the complaints of Captain Marvel's character arc, I do think there's some validity in the fact that they did not appreciate her having a flat arc, which, to be fair, she really doesn't in the movie. It's very flat. And I think if you're the type of person who doesn't enjoy that type of movie where you want your character arcs, the character goes through learning something or processing some sort of emotion, then yeah, you're not going to enjoy that. Like, Captain Marvel's not going to be good for you. But that doesn't have anything to do with her gender. It's just how the character was written. Like, we've had that type of character arc, or lack of character arc, since at least the 80s, with the overpowered 80s action hero that were men. And when people watch it, if they don't like it, They're not like, oh, that's a bad example of character writing, or that's a bad example of writing men. They're like, well, that's just a type of movie I don't like. And it does seem a little bit unfair that instead of being like, well, Captain Marvel had a flat arc, I don't enjoy flat arcs, so that's not a type of movie for me. It's immediately cited as, oh, this is a bad example of writing women. Especially if you are a woman in real life that tends to be more stoic or less emotional, that's a little bit of a slap in the face. Like, oh, that's not realistic. Well, thank you for telling me I'm not real. And to be fair to these people, like I said, I do think there's some validity where if you're low energy about it, or you're not careful, you can do this and end up making the character actually terrible, or at least the arc terrible. Like, for this example, I'll cite Katara in the live action adaptation from Netflix for Last Airbender. For those of you that haven't seen it, Katara goes from being a novice in her magical skill of waterbending, magic, to, by the end, even in like the original, she gets kind of anointed a kind of master so she can teach Aang in the second season, or continue to teach him in season 2. And I don't know why Netflix chose to go this way. I think they were trying to do some sort of like female empowerment of like, oh, you don't need validation from others or validation from a man, and it just came off wrong. But in the new Atla, Katara and Aang like barely ever practice. And all the bending styles are based on martial arts. And if you've ever taken a martial art, you know it takes years of dedication, practice, to even get like a middle belt if you're in like a legit martial arts school. Like, it takes more than, like, believing in yourself is important, but it also takes, you have to struggle, it takes practice, time, and skill, and that's not something you can just earn by thinking really proudly of yourself, right? And that's kind of how it's handled in the live action adaptation. Instead of having to go to waterbending school where she fights for her place and eventually getting accepted in where she can train with the others, they have her, she fights I forget his name, Paku, and then when she faces off with Zuko in the North Pole, when she's protecting Aang, Zuko is like, oh, you found a master. And she's like, I'm my own master. And having done martial arts for a couple years, I facepalmed so hard on that because, again, that's not something you can just believe hard enough in yourself and you're better at. Like, it's important, but you still have to train. It still takes years. The idea, I think it created like a false idea of like, if you're a woman, you should immediately be amazing at everything. And if you're not, you're just not believing hard enough in yourself. You don't need to practice, you don't need to struggle, just believe. I think especially if you're writing a story to younger viewers, like you're doing young adult or middle grade, you need to show, whether male or female, that it takes work to achieve things. Like, believing in yourself, yes, is important, but that is only the first step. And I can understand where some of these critics get very frustrated with these overpowered female characters that we've had recently, where they don't seem to struggle, they don't seem to need to work for their end goal. And I agree with them in that respect, that that's not a good way to write a character. Like, having a power fantasy or wish fulfillment, they have their place in movies or even in books. But you gotta be careful when you're doing it. And when you're low energy about it, it can come off really, really bad to kind of counter whatever you're trying to do. So I'm going to have to do a part 2 where I do like the tips and advice I kind of gleaned from going through all this. So check back in for that. I'm kind of at the end of my time limit here. But thanks for listening. Give me your thoughts on if you agreed or disagreed with my points on anything. Let me know and we'll talk about it then. See you in the next one.